Hey, good afternoon. I want to talk a little bit today about the due diligence process, and if this camera is a little shaky, it's because I'm using this new capture application from YouTube. But as you know from some of the other videos, due diligence is the portion of the buying process where a buyer gets to look at the books, records, looks underneath the skirt, so to speak, of the business that they're going to acquire, and gets a kind of final look and validation of what the representations of the seller have been. The reason for the quick video was that today I had 2 calls and appointments with people who were either about to buy or were in the midst of a due diligence phase. The one who's in the midst of due diligence is buying an internet business. And what's interesting in the conversation with the buyer was this particular buyer has a background in finance, is very numbers oriented, and is buying a business that is not very numbers oriented. It's basically a website where people pay to blog and communicate. So it's a real different business model and a venture into an unknown for her. And as I watched the exchanges going back and forth between buyer and seller, what I observed was a left brain, right brain type of dialogue, and there were some disconnects with regard to each party understanding the perspective of the other. Didn't get heated. It was just, frankly, when I needed to step in and kind of point out that they both needed to work to bridge the gap. The buyer in this case is absolutely fantastic for this business because of what they will do with it afterwards. Their talents, skill set, and knowledge is exactly what the clients of the website need in terms of hard numbers and business development skills. So, my takeaway from this brought back a quote I had heard many years ago from Andy Cagnetta, and that was that buyers buy a business for what it did or did in the past, but they purchase the business for what it will do in the future. And I always remind buyers to look at their skills, talents, and the weaknesses or opportunities within the acquisition, and how their talents and skills will either overcompensate for those issues or enhance those opportunities and drive revenues and profits. So, the tip of the day is you buy for what the numbers do, but there's also the intangibles, the things that your skills and talents will be able to enhance, and what your skills and talents will do to take the business forward. Another example of this would be an earlier meeting I had with a buyer. The buyer is looking at acquiring an internet-based business, oddly enough, and it's a more service related to computers and technology. Currently in the industry, frankly, a competitor, both owner-operator businesses, but the mix of the acquisition target is more service contracts, and the buyer recognized the intangible value of service contracts because he's looking at those service contracts almost like an annuity and guaranteed gross income. There's not going to be any, when he does the acquisition, there won't be any increase in cost to him, no labor to it. It's just going to be contract work that's going to be, he's going to handle when the calls come up, but is going to dramatically change his business. That's a prime example of someone who buys a business for what it does, but makes the purchase ultimately because of what it will mean to their business go forward. So think about that as you conduct your due diligence, and as always, if you have any questions, feel free to call 321-287-0349 or go to my website, www.businesses4saleorlando.com. Thanks.